Good. So we're going to talk about the mind today, and if you don't mind, we got about an hour. I know the teachings are timeless, but we have a time limit, so we'll try and see what we can cover. Hey, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Good to see you. So, first question is, who's got a mind here? Everyone's got a mind. Some of you don't at the back, which is great. What's it like? Is it like nice and chill? Is it easy for you to deal with your mind, or is it too difficult, or it's okay? Something like monkey. It's like a monkey's mind, isn't it? Yeah. Wonder how you got a monkey's mind. It's interesting. What are some of the problems you think that the mind causes? Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily your problem, and we're not trying to go very deep or specific, just like generic. What do you think some of the problems that the mind causes? Or if it is a problem?
Sometimes causes worries.
Causes worries? Okay, so worrying is a problem. Do you agree? Who agrees?
Yeah.
You agree? Yeah. Okay, worrying is a problem. Okay, anything else? Overthinking? Okay, you overthink. Okay, great. What else? What are the problems we got?
Always agree with what we want to do.
That's a very good point. It's interesting because you want to do something, but then your mind doesn't want to do it, isn't it? And it's almost like you have to force your mind to do something. What else? Let's have 3 or 4 more.
Distractions?
Conflict. One would say that's the right path, that says that's the wrong path.
The 2 dogs, the good dog and the bad dog. This is right, this is wrong. Okay, conflict. Yes?
Lack of focus.
Lack of focus. Okay, that is a problem as well, especially if you got ADHD or something, it's like everywhere.
If I have it.
She's got it. So lack of focus. Okay, anything else?
You said distraction? Yeah.
Distraction, yeah.
Yeah.
Lack of focus, distraction. Anything else? What's it like in like day-to-day dealings when you make, like what about when you want to make bigger decisions in your life? Sometimes, do you think the mind gets in the way? Is it helpful? Or it almost seems like a lot of bad things about the mind, isn't it? What about, let's say, what about sometimes you just react to things, isn't it? Like when someone shouts at you, you just get angry and then you shout back, and then you go back and think, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. Or especially in a relationship, isn't it? When you got your husband or wife. Doesn't happen in our relationship, it's perfect, but I'm just talking about everybody else. It's like sometimes you just say things and then you go, oh no, why did I say that? And then you have to kind of deal with the ego to kind of go and apologize, and it kind of becomes a whole day thing. So instead of just like a 2-minute thing, instead of just a 2-minute thing. So the mind does cause a lot of problems and things like that. So do you think it is important to do something about it? And how many of you know what to do about it? Or maybe things you tried. Have you tried something? Or maybe you just like, hey, it is what it is, this is what we got. Or have you tried something? Or if you have tried something, did it work? If you haven't tried, why haven't you tried? Like, do you want to... I'm just trying to keep it interactive. I can sit here and speak for an hour.
It's impossible to control mind.
Okay.
And then even though you try to work on different ways like yoga, meditation, and even like association, it seems difficult.
It seems difficult. That's very interesting because what we're going to speak today, we're going to talk a little bit about why it is difficult and what we can do about it. So there is something there about that as well. What else do you think? Somebody else? Yes?
It's good to see from the other person's point of view. Sometimes we're too staunch in our own mind's thinking.
Okay. Okay, good to see it from somebody else's viewpoint.
If there's a challenge, you've got to see, what is their point of view.
What is their point of view?
Think a bit differently.
Okay, good. Anything else you've tried?
Sometimes the mind is just running and we can't stop it.
It's running, isn't it? It's like a motorway. Not the M25, because that never runs. It's just always stopped. But yeah, sometimes it's always running. Okay, so let me tell you a few things. So these are few things, just understanding what's happening inside of us. Sometimes there's conflict, you were saying. Sometimes it's like, you want to do something, but it doesn't let you do. So there's 2 things, very simple things. First is based on understanding. Maybe we don't understand what the mind is, isn't it? Maybe we don't, we try to think of it in terms of like the scientific thing. Maybe there's a frontal lobe and there's something else, and this does that and that chemical and this hormone, and it just gets very complicated. But in
Actually, does anyone know, according to the Vedas, where the mind resides? Do you want to point into your body where you think the mind is?
In the soul.
Close. Where's the soul? Yeah. So the mind is actually, according to the Shastra, the mind is actually in the heart. Resides in the heart area, which I think is really interesting. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a good point.
It's
Good
fun,
point.
yeah.
Good to know. So, what was I saying?
You were
Yes.
saying, yeah.
You need to know. One thing is knowledge, understanding what the mind is, how it functions, how to understand it, and then we can be able to deal with it. Right? If you don't know what it is or what to do with it, you can't really do anything, isn't it? If I tell you, if you don't know how to drive a car, how you get to a certain place is less important because you don't know how to drive a car. So if I put you in a car, you're just going to crash in like 2 minutes because you don't know how to drive a car. So in the same way, there's a mind and there's the problems that a mind causes, but if you don't know what the mind is, then how to deal with it is kind of less relevant. You won't be able to do much. So the first thing is understanding what the mind is. And the second thing is, we just thought there's so many ways of dealing with it, and what we're going to speak about is, actually it used to be a 4-week course, and we're just going to try and share a few things in like half an hour, basically. So we just thought we'd come up with like 2 or 3 main things, and so it's food for thought for you today, just helping you understand things, and 3 practical things that you can do. But it mostly depends on, you take those 3 things and you have to work on it. The answers to these things are quite simple. They're not easy, but they're simple, and it's for you to take it back, think about it, work on it a little bit, and then over time it'll be revealed to you. So that's what we're going to do. So first of all, you hear things in your head. Sometimes there's a worrying sound, and sometimes there's another voice telling something else, and another voice. So it's said in the Vedas, in different places, when you put things together, there's some in the Yoga Sutras, there's some in the Vedas, you put these things together, and it turns out, all these voices coming from inside you, where it's coming from? There's actually 5 voices, and these are 5 different things coming within you. Does that sound scary? 5 things. These sounds are coming from like 5 different places, and we think it's just one big mush. And why is it saying this sometimes? Why is it saying that sometimes? Sometimes it says 2 opposite things, but it's not opposite things. It's basically 5 different things, the voices that you hear. Would you like to know what these 5 things are? Okay. Now then it just helps you compartmentalize things, and then you'll be able to tell when there's a certain kind of voice, okay, that's what this is, that's what that is, and then it kind of helps you deal with it. But to know these 5 things, you have to understand the nature. Okay? Let me give you a little bit of an analogy. Now, we don't have mics today, but if we had mics, so say you can imagine it like there's 5 different microphones, but it's connected to one speaker. So, and if say there's 5 people speaking into 5 different mics, say you speaking into one, you speaking into one, you speaking into one. So there's 5 people speaking into 5 microphones, and say maybe I've installed like a voice distorter in the middle, so everybody's voice sounds the same. Okay? And it's all coming out of one speaker, but there's 5 different people speaking. So how will you be able to tell which one's, Murli Prabhu speaking, which one's Rajanath Prabhu, which one's you, which one's you? How can you tell?
You can't.
No, you can. There is a way you can tell. But I want you to think, how can you tell?
If you focus on one, or
If you focus on one, okay. What?
Based on the context, what they are saying.
Based on the context, yes. Because when you have a problem, okay, you know that this is the person and they speak in this way. So based on the content and the context and how they say, you'll be able to tell, okay, this must be this person speaking. Even though you can't recognize the voice and sound and things, based on what they say, you'll be able to tell. So let's understand what these 5 things are. So if you know the nature of each one, you know what one is talking, and you know how to deal with it.
It's very scientific.
Okay, it's actually very scientific. There's a lot of information like this in our books. So the first voice that you hear within you is your own voice. It's the voice of the soul. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita, one of the first teachings in the Bhagavad Gita is that this is the body, it's not me. Okay, I am the soul within. In the same way that a person drives a car, you're not the car, you're the soul within. So we are spiritual beings. We here in this position, in this environment for a certain reason. We have certain desires and we're here for a certain purpose. So we're always constantly hearing that voice. We have a certain direction we want to take. So that is the first voice, the voice of the soul, your desire, okay? That is one of the voices that you will hear in the whole mush coming out of the speaker. The second voice that you hear is actually, you're not alone in this body. There is somebody else with you as well. Okay.
Who is it? Anyone know?
It's not like a horror movie or something.
Super soul, yeah. Parama.
Yeah, so it's the super soul. Okay, super soul is Krishna within the heart, or Vishnu rather, Vishnu within the heart. And it is said in the Upanishads, it explains how there's two birds in a tree. Okay, one bird is jumping from one branch to the other, to the other, to the other, and it's tasting the fruits of the tree. Some fruits are sour, some fruits are bitter, some fruits are sweet, and it's jumping from branch to branch, tasting the fruits of the tree, but the other bird is just watching. Okay? So it said that one bird is the soul, jumping from branch to branch, which is one life to the other, and tasting different fruits that are sweet or sour. What is that? Good karma and bad karma, right? And changing lives like that. But the other bird is the super soul, Vishnu in the heart, who's watching, who's witnesses, and sometimes it tells you, hey, don't do that, that's not good for you. Okay? And whether you're a Krishna devotee or not, the super soul, whether you're a human, you're an animal, you have this intuition. Don't you have that intuition sometimes? Sometimes you have it from within. You're like, no, I really shouldn't be doing that. Okay? That intuition. So that intuition is actually Vishnu in the heart telling you. But if you don't know how to recognize, you won't be able to tell the difference. So most of us just ignore that voice and kind of carry on with our life. But God doesn't interfere. He'll give you a suggestion, but He won't interfere because you have free will. So that's the second voice, the voice of the super soul in the heart. Okay? The third voice is the voice of the mind. Okay? The voice of the mind. So the mind, according to the Vedas, is not the brain. The brain is an instrument that fulfills the function of the mind. Okay, it's not actually the thing. It doesn't start from there. The starting point of something is always a subtle thing. It always starts from there. Let me give you an example. Is it okay so far, what we're talking about? Is it too confusing? Are you okay? Some of you look zoned out, so I'm not really sure. But is it good? Should I carry on? Okay.
Is the brain is intelligence?
No, we're coming to that. The brain is just an instrument. So I was just going to...
It's like the heart is an instrument. It's not like the heart necessarily feels love.
Yeah. It's like, the example I was going to tell you is like, for example, there's breathing, right? So you need to breathe because you need air, because the breathing and the air helps you survive. And then there's lungs, okay? So there's lungs that fulfill the function of the breathing, but the breathing starts with the air. The air is what you need, but the lungs just help you fulfill that function, like that. So the mind is actually the thinking. All of the thinking and all of things that is being done is the mind, but the brain is just the instrument that helps you fulfill that. It's not actually the thing. So the Vedas say the beginning of everything is subtle, okay? So the mind is, according to the Vedas, it's not a physical organ or something, it's a subtle element. So in the Vedas it says that our body is made up of 8 different elements. So I won't go through the details of all of them, but like they are earth, so our body, all the physical things, that is the earth element. There's water element within us. There's fire, which is the heat and fire. There's air. There's ether. Ether is what transmits sound. And then there's 3 other ones. So one of them is a mind, so it's an element, okay? Just like water is an element, okay? It makes things wet. That's a property of water. That's what it does. You won't get any water that dries anything. Water makes things wet. That's what it is. So it's an element. So just like that, mind is an element, but it's a subtle element that is within you. And just like the water makes things wet, the mind thinks. So thinking is a function of the mind. Now, the property of the mind is, what does it think? Okay, and how does it think? So the function of the mind is to fulfill your desire for enjoyment. That is why the mind's there. Okay, it's there to fulfill your desire. But the thing is, it's not very rational. So, presented with any option, the mind only thinks. In the Vedas, it's said there are only two functions of the mind. One is sankalpa, and one is vikalpa. Sankalpa means yes, I want it because it's fun. No, I don't want it because it's too much trouble. That's all it does. So the mind looks at any situation you're in and says, this is great, let's do it. Or, this is too difficult, let's not do it. So if your alarm goes off in the morning, if you get a thought in your head saying, I don't want to get up today, it's just, this bed is very comfortable, that is your mind telling you, relax. It's not fun to get up. Okay, why get up? It's not fun. Just stay in bed. It's very warm, it's comfortable, especially if you have a heated blanket like we got some time ago. Last year we were trying to get a heated blanket, but they had all run out. So this time we just bought it in September instead of waiting till December. Last year in December we started looking for it. Every single shop, online, offline, everything was sold. So we just bought it in September this time. It's cheap, nice heated blanket, and your mind goes, why get out of bed?
And it's not like the mind has the capacity to think about the future or it can think about the future, but it doesn't have the capacity to think about really consequences, or really it struggles to think of anything else outside of this very moment and what feels good right now in this moment.
Yeah, so basically you got a chocolate on the table, your mind will say, eat it. Okay, you eat that, and then it'll say, well, there's more there, why don't you eat those as well? Okay, and then you eat those, and then it says, well, there's so much more, let's take some home. Okay, so that's the mind. So its only function is to tell you, I want this, I don't want it. Okay, only two things, sankalpa, vikalpa, yes, no, this is fun, this is not fun, this is great, let's do it, this is not good, let's not do it. So that is a function of the mind, that's how the mind thinks. Okay, it just wants you to enjoy, it's innocent, it just wants you to enjoy, have fun. So that's the mind. Okay, the fourth voice that you hear within you is another element that the Vedas say, and that is the element of intelligence. That is also a separate element. Interestingly, intelligence, according to the Vedas, it's an element, which means you already have it. Okay? It's not that you need to develop it. You can train it, just like everyone's got muscles, right? But you can exercise and you can kind of make things stronger. You can sort of build your muscle, but it's not like you don't have muscle. Okay? So just like intelligence, everybody has it, it's just that we don't use it. I mean, we do from time to time. But so intelligence, the function of the intelligence is to think, right, this is great, but if I keep eating this chocolate more and more and more and more, it's not really good for me. So what happens is when there's 10 chocolates on the table, your mind will say, well, eat as many as you can. So you will generally end up eating one or two. And then the intelligence is like, okay, you better start being careful now. Okay, this is not good for you. To which the mind will say, no, you might as well enjoy these chocolates here, let's eat them. And the intelligence goes, no, don't do that, don't listen to this guy. Okay, I know he wants you to enjoy, but if you eat that chocolate now, you know, it's going to be like more and more, and it's not going to stop. So you better stop now because it's not good for you. You got diabetes, so stop. Okay, so that's the intelligence. The function of the intelligence is to think into the future. Which one do you think is stronger, the mind or the intelligence? The mind is obviously stronger because we have a desire for enjoyment, so we will obviously mostly pick the mind because it's more fun. It's not fun to go with intelligence because it's telling you to cultivate self-discipline and it's thinking about the future. Well, who knows about the future? Let's just go for now. You meet some people, isn't it? I don't worry about the future. I just live in the now. Okay, that's living on the level of the mind. So the intelligence is more rational, and the good dog, bad dog example you give is basically a battle between the mind and the intelligence, both trying to present their points to you, saying, yes, you should do this, no, you shouldn't do this. So that's what it is. So that's 4 things. You remember them so far? What was number 1? The soul.
Self.
Okay.
Super soul.
Super soul. 3 was
Mind.
mind.
Intelligence.
4 was intelligence. Now the 5th voice is a very
Yeah.
interesting one.
You have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you distinguish between the intelligence and the mind?
So that's the thing. Like we spoke earlier, remember we said different microphones connected to one speaker.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference by how they talk. So if the thought in your head is saying, I want this now, it's fun, I really want to do this, without thinking about future consequences, that's a mind. If the thought is in your mind that's saying, well, let's hold back a little bit, let's think about it, this is not good, I want to think about this sustainably in the long run. Okay? If you earn $1 million in a lot, or you win a lottery.
You keep thinking in America.
Dollars, yeah.
You said
The other day we wanted
vacation. You keep saying
vacation. The other day something, last year, and I was like, call 911, call 911. I think
in a panic, I did, but
and
luckily
she
it
called
directs
911
you
as
to
well. But if you call
999.
911, it directs to 999. because
He watches too many American movies.
It's the American movies, that's what it is. So if you get the thought in your mind saying, okay, let's look at it later, future, let's
Yeah.
not worry about it too much. Let's, if you win £1 million, your mind will tell you, well, let's go on vacation, let's invite all our friends for a drink, let's have a party, let's go traveling around the world, let's buy a big boat, let's go on cruises. That's what your mind will tell you, because it just splash all your money. What the intelligence will tell you is, well, okay, let's do this. Let's plan it. Let's buy a house. Let's buy another house and put it on rent, so there's some income coming in. Let's take this much money and put it in index funds.
Or you'll
Let's
think
put this
about
much
it more, essentially.
That's your intelligence's way of dealing with things. So it's different.
Is worrying and overthinking something the intelligence does then, or is it the mind?
So worrying it's interesting. Your worrying is usually a property of the mind, because all the thinking kind of happens in the mind, because the mind, that is the specific quality of the mind, is to think. So it's usually thinking. Now sometimes what it can also be is an argument between the mind and the intelligence that you're hearing. Which is like, yes, let's do this, or should I not do this, should I do this, should I not do this? See, I'm coming to it. I see ultimately all these things are there, but ultimately the decision maker is you. You have to decide who you want to listen to. Do you want to listen to the mind? Do you want to listen to the intelligence? Do you want to listen to somebody else? Do you want to listen to the super soul? It's your choice. So indecision is a quality of the soul, when the soul can't decide whether I should listen to this or that, and you're hearing thoughts in your head. And you're hearing thoughts in your head because you haven't made a decision. Once you make a decision, the thoughts stop, because the argument is finished, you made a decision. So that's why if you got too much worry is basically you thinking about things that doesn't really matter, there's really not much you can do about it. That's a worry. It's a thought that doesn't have a action. You can't make a decision about it. That's a worry.
Can I just say, yeah, it is the mind that causes worry, because although the mind's primary purpose is to accept something or reject something, it is a monkey. The mind is a monkey, and that means it can get a bit out of control sometimes. So things can, because the intelligence isn't there, so it can spiral, it can compare and despair, it can do all these different things. And imagine like a drunken monkey just running around. That's what the mind can do. So it doesn't only actually just accept and reject, it also has this capacity of throwing us into anxiety and worrying, and even mental health issues. That's a different conversation altogether, but primarily these things are coming from the mind.
From the mind, yeah.
An uncontrolled mind.
Like
Yeah.
there is an African saying which says, if you can, what does it say? If you can do something about it, what is the need of worrying? And if you can't do something about it, then what is the need of worrying? So worry usually comes when you're thinking about things that are out of your influence and out of your control. Because things you just make a decision and then the worry stops like that. So those are 4 things. 5th one is the ego. Now the ego is also an element. Now what does the ego do? The ego gives you a sense of identity. That's the function of the ego. So your true identity is you're the soul. But when you're in this material world, you sort of develop a different identity. You start thinking you're somebody else because you're with that for too long. Like for example, your identity may be, well, the first identity you get is you're a man or a woman, okay? Then over time it develops, you like, this is my mom, this is my dad, these are my friends, those are my enemies, this is my country, those are their country, I live in this country, I don't like people from that country coming over in boats.
This is what I look like.
You know, this is what I look like.
These are my hobbies.
These are my hobbies, this is my teeth, this is my personality, these are my friends, these are my enemies. That is, so you created an identity about yourself. So that is the ego. What else is also part of your identity is the behaviors and habits that you develop. That is also part of you. You do, like your personality is things that you do. If I ask somebody to describe you, maybe ask your best friend to describe you, they would say, okay, she's this really nice lady and she's very smart, she's very intelligent, but she's always got this habit also of like, I don't know, interrupting me when I talk, or whatever, like that. Everybody has a certain habit that becomes part of their personality. So that is also, so all of these things are part of your identity, and that identity is the ego. Interestingly, we get so absorbed in our new identity that we've created that we forget our real identity. And because we associate ourselves with this false identity so much, so strongly, that if anything happens to that identity, it actually hurts us even though it's got nothing to do with us. Okay? I'll tell you a very short story. One of my friends told me this. He bought a new Tesla just some time ago. And then he came, and as you do when you buy a new car, what do? You go to a temple, right? So he brought the car to the temple, he parked it in the car, he goes, this was the first day he took his car out, went to take darshan, prayed to the Lord, please keep my Tesla safe, as you do, nice prayer. Comes out, looks at the Tesla, huge scratch, deep scratch running all the way along it. And he was like, his heart just sank. Can you think of what the feelings that were in his head? Can you describe, for example, what could be the feelings he had? Anger, upset.
Lack of faith, maybe.
Lack of faith, frustration. He goes, I lost my faith in God. Yeah. He goes, for a brief moment, he goes, I brought the car to the temple to show Krishna, because that's and then in the temple the car gets a scratch. And he's like so frustrated, so angry. He goes, whoever did this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Anyway, he presses his button and the car doesn't even open. He goes, okay, this is really bad. Anyway, he goes around the other side, and what he actually sees is that's a different car, and his car is right next to it. And it's the exact same car, exact same model, same color, everything the same. And he goes, oh, my car's okay. And then what do you think his feelings were? Relief, happiness, back to having faith in God. Okay? So feelings immediately changed. So the reality never changed. His car was never bad. His car was always okay. But his perception, because he associated himself so much with his car, even though nothing happened to him, he felt the pain, right? So that's like that. When we get attached to an identity, even though it's not us, we feel it. So the ego, the way the ego reacts is, if anything damages your identity, then you immediately get upset. What the heck? And
the
there's not
ego
much.
can also cause worry.
The ego can cause worry, but usually what it does, there's not much thinking that goes behind it with the ego, because it's a behavior within you and something harming your identity. Like for example, if you're driving and a car cuts you up, what do? You honk really loudly, right? Because what's actually happening there is, this is me. How dare this guy doesn't respect me? Do I not exist? Does he not see me? Like, that's basically what's going on with the ego. That's somebody disrespects you, somebody shouts at you, you get angry and shout back, okay?
Or even like if something physically happens to your body, like a drastic change, if you, I don't know, a tragedy happens and your body changes in a big way, or a really big family dynamic changes. These are all things that can deeply hurt us, because it's like, that's our ego, but this is who I am, and now who even am I now without, whatever it is. Yeah, it's interesting.
So different things happen. Now, the ego is your inbuilt behaviors within you, protecting your identity, and it's the fastest thing. It's usually instant, okay?
And it's also important to note that your mind intelligence and your false ego is with you for births, for lifetimes. So this is something, because like you're saying, there's subtle elements. So it's almost like Play-Doh. It can be molded in different shapes and different colours. And so your mind intelligence and false ego, that's been with you for a very, very, well, since time immemorial, since a very, very long time. And depending on what we do in this lifetime, it shapes our future in this body and in our next, how we form and shape our mind and our intelligence and our false ego too.
Yeah.
Our ego, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been shaping over many, many lifetimes.
Yeah.
So you have a very unique combination of mind, intelligence, and ego. I'll come to your question in just a second, just to kind of wrap up this side of things. So your ego is your automatic behavior, something you would react to instantly, automatically, even without thinking, when something happens, because you're protecting your identity. So when you're in a certain situation when that is necessary, your ego will come into play. Your intelligence and mind are usually at conflict. Your mind telling you, I want to do this because it's fun, and your intelligence is telling you, I need to think about this a bit more and make rational decisions. So that's the conflict. The super soul doesn't usually tell you things about day-to-day stuff, but it'll warn you when there's a need. But you have to learn to pick up that intuition.
And we can't always hear it.
You can't always hear it. And the soul has a certain desire as well, the desire why you're here. So all these 5 thoughts are going on in your head, okay? And you kind of, things, as and when there's a certain situations which requires one of these things, it kind of automatically jumps in and kind of does its thing. Okay.
Actually, did anyone see the movie Inside Out? I actually thought that was, I know it wasn't intelligence, false ego, mind, but I thought that was a really nice representation of the different voices
Different
and emotions.
emotions.
Yeah, I really like
If you haven't seen it, you should see it.
Prabhu, did you want to say your question?
Yeah, so maybe.
2 questions. One is, can you explain a little bit more about the mind being in the heart, you said?
Yeah.
One thing.
Yeah.
And then secondly, when the soul moves from one body to another, do all these subtle things move with the soul?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to?
Okay, yeah, your second question is probably more simple to answer. Yeah, so as long as we're staying in this material realm, then yeah, with your soul comes the subtle body, and in the subtle body contains your mind, intelligence, and false ego, like that, and it will travel with you.
So your physical body can't travel because you leave it behind, it's still there. But your subtle body goes with you. And what it means that you won't remember specific things because we have a tendency to forget. We can't even remember specifically what we did like 2 months ago. But generally, you will remember the experience that it leaves you with. Like the feeling, how you felt when you were in a certain situation many years ago, that feeling may be there, and that sort of molds your personality in a certain way. Maybe something happened and now you're always afraid of being in a cave, or maybe something happened and it may not be from this lifetime, from before, but it leaves impressions on you, and that goes with us, and that's why we all have a unique set of personality. All of us are very different. Even 2 twins who brought up in the exact same household in the exact same way can have 2 completely different personalities because the life before that was different. So the subtle body goes with you.
Yeah, I don't want to confuse things even more, but the mind and the heart, especially in our books and our scriptures, are very much linked. Like when it talks about things to purify the heart, it's often also talking about purifying the mind as well, and they're very much interlinked.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how scientifically, how we know it resides in the heart region. I don't know if you know.
But what it
anything
said
about
is that the soul is situated in the region of the heart, and everything is basically there surrounding the soul.
So maybe everything's
So,
there.
so the mind, the intelligence, the ego, everything is centered around the soul. And the soul is situated in the region of the heart, and the
so
super
paramount
soul is also
yeah.
situated in the region
So
of
everything's
the heart.
here.
Because in a simple thing, you think the brain is there, so you think
Yeah.
it's not like that.
I know. It's
Not
so
according to
interesting.
Vedic philosophy. Brain's the instrument, so if you break the instrument, it'll still cause problems, but it's not where things are starting from. Just like if your lungs have a problem, you'll have an issue with the breathing, but the main thing is the breathing, not the lungs.
Also, these are subtle elements, right? So it's not like in a scan you'd be able to see like the intelligence hanging out there. They're really, really subtle. And really they're all pervading. but the core is within the region of the heart. That's my understanding.
So are those things clear?
I'm just conscious of time. What
least.
time is this?
We are going to go to...
Because we've got a lot to cover, haven't we?
Yeah. So we're going to, but we're okay so far. So we're not going to go into too much depth. Like I said, it's a whole course for 4 weeks. So just a brief overview, just to help you understand what things are and where things are coming from. So maybe you'll be able to distinguish things a little bit. Now, what do you do about it? That's the next question, right? So we thought about 2 or 3 things we could share with you, something practical. Actually, there are many, many different things to do, but we're just going to share the 3 things we thought were the main things.
And then we have a quiz for you to do.
That's part of the 3 things.
What is it, a self?
Yeah, we'll do it when we get to it.
No, I'm just telling there are fun things coming.
There's fun things coming. So Kishori is going to lead those
what
parts.
was the first one?
The 10 seconds.
Oh, okay, yes. So this is an interesting, really simple thing. Really simple. Well, it sounds simple, but in principle it could be different. So one sadhu, one saintly person told me that the difference between a human and an animal is about 10 seconds. The difference between a human and an animal is about 10 seconds. And what was meant by that is that if we could somehow just take 10 seconds of a pause before we act, then maybe it would be more aligned to what we truly want to do. So a really, sounds simple to say, technique that if we practice, I should practice this more, and it helps me a lot, is to just pause and wait, even just 10 seconds before you respond to something, especially if it's something that has triggered you, especially if it's something that has made you feel a certain way. And it's interesting because when I speak to devotees, and you can tell these very thoughtful devotees, I'll even ask, even like my spiritual master, I'll ask a question, and he'll pause, and he doesn't just answer right away, he'll pause, think about it, look at me, and then he'll respond. So it's interesting, this just short gap can be a make or break situation. So,
like for example, when you were in an argument with your boss, or with your wife, or your husband,
or your siblings,
you said one thing, but if you didn't say it, if you just waited 10 seconds, okay, thought about it a little bit, and then said it, wouldn't it save you a lot of hassle? If you wanted to really do something as an instinct, but you didn't do it, you waited 10 seconds, thought about it, and then did it, wouldn't that make a big difference? It could actually save a marriage, it could save your life, it could save a lot of things, because once you say things, you can't take them back.
In 10 seconds, we could even say one long breath, like 4 in, 6 out.
Yeah. So the reasoning behind this is this, that animals usually react to things. They don't have higher intelligence and consciousness. They react to things. They don't think about things too much. It's like there's food here, there's I got to eat, and there's a lion there, I got to run. Okay, they don't think about, right, let's think about it, read a book about, 7 effects of highly effective people or whatever. They, animals rely on instinct and automatic behaviors, but humans have that ability to decipher, think, and make decisions. Now, like I mentioned, intelligence is a quality within all of us. It's already there. But you have to give it time for it to work. The mind is usually fast, very quick, and it is the first choice. It's like imagine you're in a car. Okay, you're in a car. The soul is a passenger. The soul doesn't do anything. This is Krishna even says this in the Bhagavad Gita. There is an analogy of a chariot, not the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. The soul is the passenger in the chariot. The soul's not doing anything. It's just telling other things to do. So if the soul is the passenger, the senses are like, well, let's just say chariot. Soul is a passenger. The senses are like the horses that are kind of dragging you in different directions, okay? You can imagine the mind is at the steering wheel, and the intelligence is sitting next to it. Usually the mind does all the driving, because whenever something happens, usually The mind is already at the driver's wheel. It's just how it is. The mind is always at the driver's seat.
The mind's stronger.
It's just, the mind is way stronger, it's way more powerful, it's always in the driver's seat. And giving this 10 seconds allows you to swap positions. So the mind gets out, goes to the other side, and the intelligence comes and takes a seat. You have to give time for the intelligence to work. You don't need to do much, you just need to get out of your head. Okay? In those 10 seconds, you stop, take a deep breath.
I think inhale for 4, exhale for 6.
Inhale for 4, exhale for 6, give it 10
That's a
seconds.
really good one.
And that 10 seconds actually gives your intelligence time to function. You don't need to do anything more.
It gives time for the intelligence
But
to take the wheel.
It gives you time for the... See, the breathing is also very important. I'll tell you why. Because breathing is usually a connection between your inner feelings and your external reaction. Okay? That's why they have something called pranayama. You heard of pranayama?
It's actually the link between the mind and the body.
It's a link between the mind and the
Which is
body.
really
It's the in-between breathing. Just like when you get angry, it's an emotion, it's within, it's not physical. But what is a physical symptom of anger? Your breathing really changes. You breathe heavily. When you're anxious, it's an inner symptom. You take short breaths, your breathing changes. When you have a panic attack, your breathing changes. Your inner state of mind reflects in your outer expression through your breathing, through other things as well, but because breathing is that inner link. So what it said is, if you don't do it straight away, you stop and you control your breathing, you can control your emotions within you as well. That is the whole premise of pranayama.
And even just on pranayama, like even traditionally, before doing puja or deity worship, actually there is instruction to do a certain pranayama before you start your puja, before you start your seva. So it is just that really amazing thing that's free, it's within all of us to be able to help steer our actions and our intentions in a certain way.
So it sounds all too easy,
It does
but
sound.
try it next time. Keep your mouth shut for 10 seconds, take a deep breath,
Yeah.
okay? And then come and thank me, okay? Or whatever it is that you want to do, don't do it. Give intelligence the time to function. You can't argue with the mind using your own mind, okay? You're never going to win. You'll never win an argument with your mind. If you're trying to argue, if you think I'm going to use my willpower and I'm really going to do this, it doesn't work. Willpower is overrated. It works to some degree, but you can't win an argument with your mind. You can't do something you really hate by using willpower. You can do it once or twice, but you can't keep doing it for the rest of your life, okay? So the intelligence has to function. It needs to come into play. Give it time, breathe, let it happen. 10 seconds is all that you need, and that's what the Upanishads say. The difference between a human and an animal is 10 seconds. Okay? So like that. Very simple thing. But think about it, okay? That's number one. Number two,
Okay,
Kishori is going to tell you.
Before we get into number 2, I am going to ask you...
This is a little exercise we want you to do.
I'm going to ask you to stand up and sit next to someone you don't know so well. Chalo.
Let the men stick with the men and the ladies stick with the
Why?
ladies.
Okay, fine. We might not be even number.
We'll figure it out.
So stand up and find a seat. You all got to do it. And find a seat next to someone you don't know so well. You're not going to have to talk. There's no talking involved, don't worry. Okay, so I'm trusting you.
Okay, everybody, we're back here. This is not a break.
It's not a toilet break.
This is not a break, this is an exercise, so please pay attention. Does everybody have a partner, first of all? Okay.
Yeah, okay. So before we talk about the second tip, what we're going to ask you to do, you don't have to talk to your partner. It isn't like sharing a deep, dark secret or anything. Do you have your phone on? Oh, I have mine. Right, what I want you to do is, I'm going to time you. And I need you to stare into your partner's eyes without talking. So you can't talk. I mean, if you let out a little giggle, that's totally fine. But you're not talking, and you've got to remain eye contact. It's not like you can't blink competition. You can blink, but I just want you to stare into the eyes of the person next to you. Are there any questions? No? Good. 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Yes. Okay. Right.
Okay,
I will say when to start.
You can't look away.
You can't look away, okay?
But she'll tell you when to start.
All right. 2 minutes, starting now. 2, 1, and you can gaze somewhere else. Well done, well done.
Thank you,
well
you guys
done.
did so well.
That
Okay.
was just 1 minute, by the way, not 2.
Did it feel like 10 minutes?
All right, can anyone share what feeling or emotion you felt when doing that?
It was so difficult.
Difficult.
You don't know.
That's a good one. Difficult, awkward, anything else?
I think I was a lot more aware of my mind being active.
You were aware of your mind being active. That's
When I
interesting.
was speaking as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Difficult, awkward, more aware of your mind. Anything else?
Self-conscious.
Self-conscious.
I think because I wasn't speaking, I was actually paying more attention to other features actually.
Okay.
How many wrinkles
Were you counting?
That's interesting. More attention. Yeah, yeah. Okay, there was another hand somewhere. Yeah.
You almost connect with the soul on a better level.
You were connecting with the soul. Okay.
It was weird because I haven't stared into any.
Do you know each other? Oh, we haven't.
I knew him, and I had a kind of connection. That's how I felt at the end.
Okay. Was there something else at the back? Yeah. Sorry, so at the beginning it was awkward then? This is, okay, lovely. All of these answers are perfect. So the reason behind that exercise is it's a really simple part of dealing with our emotions, and that is being able to be comfortable in discomfort. And what I mean by that is a really nice way to be able to help control the mind or the negative feelings or emotions or awkwardness or uncomfortableness or any of these things is to actually be able to sit with the feeling, to be with the feeling. And a lot of the times when different mental health issues can manifest is often when we've gone a long time not acknowledging the feeling. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that you have to go and talk to someone about what's happening, but it can just mean sitting in the discomfort, because so often we just do anything to distract, to numb, to just make it go away as quick as possible, but actually just being able to sit with being uncomfortable, be okay with being uncomfortable. And that's when things can move through you and things can begin to heal, and you can start to understand, what does my intelligence want, or what do I want? And it's a really nice technique to practice, to not shove down your feelings or try to distract you from yourself. And there's a really nice example given, like if you have a beach ball and you're pushing it underwater, pushing it down. Let's say you have a big feeling and you're pushing it down, ignoring it, but eventually what's going to happen to that ball? It's going to burst and come up and make a splash, and everyone will see it. And so usually, time and time again, it's been proven and shown, and I've witnessed it in myself and in other people, that when we don't sit with what's going on, if we don't sit with our feelings, it does make a splash, and it can often manifest in a more dramatic or in a more painful way. So that was the reason for that exercise, try and sit with the discomfort. And some of you said, I mean, Prabhu at the back, you were saying that actually after a while, it wasn't as hard anymore. And that's the same when it comes to difficult feelings. When you sit with it, after a while, it becomes not so hard. I suffered with panic attacks for a really long time growing up. And one therapist gave me the best advice. And she said, okay, when you have a panic attack, for anyone who doesn't know, you get really kind of intense physical symptoms. And for me, I used to get very dizzy, very, very dizzy, and I think I'd faint. And that was like my main thing. My vision would go blurry and that kind of stuff. And she said, okay, sit with it. Don't try and run away from it. Sit with it. And it's almost like she told me to say, and bring it on. And like say to my panic attack, And what else can you, like, come on, like, what else have you got? Like, I'm here, give me more, what else have you got? Bring it on. And to just feel it. And I would feel the sensations rise, 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 almost to a peak where I thought, I can't bear this anymore. And then it started to disperse. I thought, wow, that's insane. And it's the same with other big feelings that we have. To face them and sit with them and let them rise and fall is really powerful.
Just to give, that's very good. Just give a little bit more context to it. Like, for example, does anyone have a bad habit? Everyone's got,
Yeah.
okay. Now, what comes before a bad habit is, it's usually said it's a feeling of discomfort, okay? Bad habits are usually bad habits. Sometimes you can think of them as, not them, but other things like addictions. They all have a similar thing, like alcoholism, or whether it's smoking, or whether it's other things, whatever your bad habits or things may be. Usually, what happens before that is you're in a state of, you have a certain feeling and you don't want to deal with that feeling, and hence you go and do something which is really bad and then you regret, isn't it?
To distract.
We all,
right?
we all do some things that we regret later on. Like an alcoholic, for example, he doesn't want to, like if you speak to any alcoholic, they will tell you they don't want to drink. Okay, they don't want to do it. They don't want to. So why do they do it? Because they got this feeling and it's very uncomfortable, and they really need to stop it. You can either do one of two things. That's what most people do. Okay, you either push away this feeling of discomfort and say, no, 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 you bad feeling, go away, go away, go away. I don't want to feel this way. Or they go, I don't want to feel this way. Let me just drink and then it's done. Okay, then it's finished. Then I don't have to deal with that feeling anymore. Okay, so either you want to push the feeling away, or you want to just drink and do your bad activity and just get it over and done with, so you don't have to deal with it anymore.
But also, so you don't have to feel anymore.
Yeah, so that's exactly why. So you don't have to feel, you just get the habit done. So one way is you push the feeling away, the other thing is you just do the habit so you don't have to deal with the feeling. Now, usually this is the cycle. Thoughts create feelings, feelings create action. Okay? To do an action, you need to have a feeling behind it. If you don't have the feeling, it's very difficult to do that action. That's what procrastination is. You have to do something at work, but you really don't want to do it, so you keep avoiding it. You keep avoiding it because there's no feeling behind it. So to do an action, you need a feeling. And sometimes we have this really uncomfortable feeling. A person who's addicted to drinking, he doesn't want to drink, but it's making him very uncomfortable.
No, but
so what you got to realize,
feeling that has nothing to do with the drink.
Yeah.
But then they would.
But the point is, feelings aren't harmful. Yeah. Now, when you did that exercise, none of you died, did you? But it was very awkward. It was very awkward, but you sat with it. Nobody died. Nobody had a heart attack. Nothing really like bad happened. It was just awkward. So you have to understand that sometimes don't let awkward or bad feelings or negative feelings push you to do an action that you don't want to do.
That's a really good point.
That's the point of
can't harm you.
That's the point of the exercise. Don't let bad feelings push you into an action that you don't want to do. The feeling isn't going to kill you. If you learn this art of being able to tolerate the uncomfortable feelings, your life will be a lot better. Because you're just not going by the whims of your mind. You're not just doing how you feel. You have to learn to sit with your negative feelings and be okay with it. Okay? So that is lesson number 2. It's a bad feeling, you feel bad, it's okay, let it be. It's not going to kill you. And over time, like you said, it gets easier. If you want, this is the number 1 trick given in the Vedas if you want to break an addiction. If you want to break an addiction, doesn't matter what addiction it is, you have to learn to be comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling you have before you go and do what you want to do. Okay? You just have to sit with it and think, right, okay, I'm feeling, this feeling is very uncomfortable. How do I feel? My hand feels tight, my chest feels a bit tight, it's very awkward. Okay, let it be, we can sit with it. Just because it's there, I don't have to do something to get rid of that feeling. Let the feeling be there. If you're able to tolerate this uncomfortable feeling and not do the action, it'll save you a lot of trouble as well.
And
That's
the reality is, because we are in the material world, we're going to have uncomfortable feelings. And things are going to happen that aren't what we want. So it's inevitable. And sometimes it's about how we deal or react in that moment to these feeling situations. Yeah.
So do we have another 5 minutes? Another 5 minutes? You okay with another 5 minutes? Okay. So point number 3. But before that, recap. Point number 1 was? Pause. That's right. Pause. Give it 10 seconds. Okay. Number 2 was?
Discomfort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be okay with your uncomfortable feelings. Okay. You're not going to die. Feelings are not harmful. Feelings can't kill you. Okay. Learn to tolerate them. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you need to learn to tolerate happiness and distress like the summer and winter seasons. They come and go. You're not going to die. It's okay. They come and go. You have to just deal with it. Don't let the bad feelings push you to do bad things. Okay. So that's number 2. Number 3 we're going to talk about is something in the long term. This will work slowly, but it's one of the biggest factors. Everybody has a certain personality. And it said our personality is made up of 3 modes, as Krishna explains, 3 gunas. Okay? Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Sattva is goodness. Goodness brings happiness. Goodness brings peace. Goodness is very calming, comforting. Okay? Then there is Rajas. Rajas brings excitement. It brings passion. It brings, what do you call? It's unsettling. It forces you to do things. And then there is Tamas. Tamas is basically mode of darkness, ignorance. It's lazy. It's procrastination. It brings you down. Okay, and we're usually a mixture of these 3 things. The more activities that you do, based on these 3 things, the more you become influenced by them, and it means that becomes part of you. You develop a certain mode, and you sort of hover or live in a certain mode. You may, if you're living in the mode of goodness, if that's the personality of your mind, in the mode of goodness, your actions will be more calming, more peaceful, and generally you will have a lesser number of thoughts, lesser number of annoying thoughts, because you're in the mode of goodness. If you got too many thoughts, unsettling thoughts, different kinds of thoughts, always a battle going on in your head, it means you're influenced too much by passion, rajas. And if you got really bad thoughts, dark thoughts, you watch too many DC movies, okay, dark horror movies, okay, things like that, that means your mind is operating in a mode of ignorance. So one way the Vedas say is that if you transition to a higher mode, from darkness to passion to the mode of goodness, things generally become easy for you. Your mind becomes easy to push to one side and deal with your intelligence. Your thought becomes more calming. You generally become less anxious, and your worrying tends to stop. Your overthinking tends to calm down. But we need to make this transition from wherever you are to the mode of goodness. How do you do that? By consuming things that are more in the mode of goodness. So by consuming, I don't just mean food, but food is one of the most important things. You eat food that is in a mode of goodness. You see things that are more in the mode of goodness. You do things that are in the mode of goodness. You hear music, you hear things that are in the mode of goodness, and it helps you transition to a higher mode. So without getting into too much detail of that, you can look that up. It's in the Bhagavad Gita, because that's another 2 hours of discussion. But what we have done is we've done a little test. And based on the Bhagavad Gita, what we did was in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, chapter 7, Krishna talks about different qualities, chapter 14 as well. And if you put these qualities, by assessing these qualities, you can tell which mode you kind of are in. Would you like to know? If you do, okay, so those of you who said yes, you can give them I think the others, they don't need to know because they don't want to know. But so what you do is, it's very simple. Now you answer the questions.
It's a questionnaire.
It's a questionnaire. It's just 30 questions. You'll be done in 5 minutes. You just tick, 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 and then add up at the bottom. It'll tell you how much you're in the mode of goodness, how much in passion, how much in ignorance, and then you can sort of deal with it.
And now, you don't have to share these with anyone. This is just for you.
This is just for you. You don't have to share it. We're not going to ask you. Also answer them based on where you think you are. Don't just stick everything in the mode of goodness, because it'll give you the highest number of points. It's not a You're not going to get any prizes at the end of this. This is for your own self-assessment. But it'll give you an idea of where you are, give honest answers, and then you can work from there. So that is the third way that the Vedas say that you transition to a higher mode, and that helps you deal with the mind a lot better. So Rajanath Prabhu here has some things for you. Do you want me to give you a hand?
That's okay, I got a helper.
You got a helper? So we'll give you 5 minutes. You can do this, and then we can take more questions if you have, or we can do some kirtan and eat prasadam. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions while these are going around? Yes.
You say what you say.
Yeah.
About how to deal with, awkward situations or whatever, but there are people out there still that do worry a lot, that there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of depression out there.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
what's the answer there then?
See, the thing is,
Can I answer this one?
you go. Yeah.
So I'm a psychotherapist, so I professionally deal with people that have certain struggles, and these are kind of like general tips. However, every single person is unique, and every single person has their own journey, their own traumas they've been through, their own nature, all of these things. And in those kind of situations, I mean, I'm a big advocate of seeking professional help or finding the help that's right for that individual. And probably you can hand them out while we're answering the questions. And understanding, the root of those things. Medication if needed, Ayurveda if needed, whatever it is that person needs. So it's very this is a general talk, but of course, it's very individualized. And
So
people do come into this world with different complexities of the mind, and different karma. And we all have our own battles. And I think often we're lucky that there are things out there that can help us, because our spiritual life and our our mental health and our spiritual life, it's almost like two train tracks. And although spirituality is the essence, but both need to be okay for the train to go along. So it's really important to address the mental side of things too.
Also, just to add to that, I know you said it, but I just want to put it more clearly, that what we've done here today is not a replacement for therapy or professional medical help you need. So this sort of works for people, for a lot of people it'll work, but especially if you got something like trauma or depression or things like that, which are psychological conditions, then you do need professional help. So it's not an answer to everything. Chanting Hare Krishna is also not an answer to everything. Just like if someone's got a broken leg, you don't tell them, Prabhu, chant Hare Krishna, it'll be okay. No, you take them to hospital, you get the leg bandaged. So just like that, if someone's got a broken mind, psychologically because of trauma or something, you don't just tell them, oh Prabhu, it's in your mind, you just chant Hare Krishna, everything's okay. Yes, it may help, but you also need professional help for certain things. So this is okay for like day to day for us to deal with things, but trauma needs to be dealt with in a different way. So I'll let you do your quiz now, and then we can take more questions. Who's left? Who's still working on the quiz? Everyone's finished? Okay, good. Everyone's finished. Great. So now,
What do they do with it?
so you must have, what you do is you add up all the points you have in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. You must have a number, maybe something like goodness 20, passion 5, ignorance 3, or something like that. You 10, yeah. Sorry, I was counting one each. But if you're counting 10 each, you'll have 100 for one, 150 for another, or whatever. It'll be a mix like that. You'll be able to see where you have more, where you sort of tipping more towards, what is more predominant in your life based on the decisions you would make. It's a sort of analysis you can tell your mind, you can check. Maybe you got a bit more passion, then you have ignorance. Maybe you have a bit more goodness, then you have something else. So it gives you a basic idea. The thing is, all three are important. All three are important for certain things. But when they go out of balance, then it can create problems. We can become more anxious. We can become more... If you got too much passion, you may find it difficult to sleep. You got too many thoughts in your head like that. So depending on what you need, you may need to balance them out. Now, there's a few things you can do. These three modes are actually present everywhere. Okay, what do you do with the information that you have? These three modes are present everywhere in every single thing that you do, in every single activity that you do. It's there in how you speak, it's there in what you eat, it's there in what you watch on TV, it's there in what you're listening to, what kind of music you listen to, every interaction, every place, what time of the day you wake up, where you work, what your house looks like, everywhere the three modes are always present. So the idea is that generally, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that we should try to rise to the mode of goodness, because that is from where you can do everything. Mode of goodness doesn't mean that you're not going to get any work done because you don't have any passion, but it's just that the work happens in a more calm, peaceful and organized manner rather than, like it would happen in the mode of passion. So generally Krishna recommends rising to the mode of goodness. I'll just mention about 3 or 4 things that you could do in your life that you need to be careful about.
Can I say one thing about the mode of goodness? And just about the mode of goodness is that it's much easier to control the mind in the mode of goodness. We're not saying that if someone is more in the mode of goodness, they're not going to have any mental mind problems. However, when you're in the mode of goodness predominantly, it becomes easier to let the intelligence take the wheel. And it also becomes much easier to access spirituality as well. Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, often said that he wants us to come to the mode of goodness. And from the mode of goodness, it's easier for us to do our meditation, to do our chanting, to read. And so it's what we're aspiring to be.
It's, just to give you an example, your mind is like a motorway. The cars going on the motorway are like your thoughts. A mode of goodness mind would be like a motorway where cars are flowing in an organized way. A mode of passion motorway would be like a motorway in India or a road in India where everything's just going everywhere and everything's just scrambled up. Okay? And a mode of ignorance motorway would be like the M25 on a Saturday afternoon where nothing moves. Okay? So the cars are not going to go from the motorway. Don't think that if you're in the mode of goodness, there won't be any thoughts. They'll always be there. It's just a bit more organized and calm and peaceful rather than chaotic. The function of the mind is to think. It's never going to stop thinking. Doesn't matter what you do, because you can't take the function of an element away from itself. So it'll always be there, but it's a bit more calm and organized. Now, some of the things, let's talk about some things that affect your mind the most. And how, if you just focus on 3 or 4 main things, then you'll be okay, because they're major things. There's other things you can focus on as well in your own time. Over time, you'll get the knack of what's goodness and what's not and stuff like that. But 3 or 4 main things. Number 1, and one of the biggest ones, unfortunately, it's also one of the ones which we don't think about so much that could affect us, but it actually affects you the most, because we do it all the time, and that's food. Okay, one of the biggest, there's a saying, isn't it? You are what you eat. Literally. Well, it's not wrong. So what you eat, because we eat 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day sometimes, because there's a lot of food everywhere, what you eat really affects your consciousness. Did you know that? What you eat, how you eat, affects the way you think. So you got to be careful what kind of things you're eating. What do you think will be kind of food that is in the mode of goodness? Fruits and vegetables? Organic? Prasad? Sattvic, yes. What kind of foods would they be? Without onion garlic? Vegetarian? Not too spicy, yes. So you kind of know. Wholesome, healthy, nicely cooked, good food which is cooked fresh, not been in the freezer for a week. Okay? Like
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, food which is satisfying for the heart.
Yeah. You eat food and you go, that was nice. Okay? It also depends on how you cook the food. What's your consciousness at the time of cooking? So try to be in good consciousness and stuff like that. What do you think would be foods in the mode of passion? What does it look like?
Salty,
Too salty, too spicy.
Lots of caffeine.
Lemon sour. If it's too sour, then yeah. Too much of anything. Too much chili paneer.
Cheese, someone said.
Chilies. Cheese is alright. Cheese is mode of goodness, I would say. I love cheese.
Yeah.
High mode of cholesterol, yeah. Yeah. There's 4 modes:
That's
goodness, passion, ignorance, and cholesterol. So what do you think would be foods in the mode of ignorance? Meat, fish, eggs, stale food.
Could it also be the neglect or your desire to eat, like neglecting your body's
Beautiful.
That's
yeah,
right,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Too much restriction on food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unhealthy eating habits. All of that falls into that. So, so basically, when you're eating, be careful what you eat and what
And
you
be careful
cook.
who cooks your food, which we don't. I think we can. I think it makes sense to think, okay, what we eat affects our body, affects our mind. But what the Vedas also say is that the consciousness in which the food is cooked can also have a subtle effect on the mind. So if you go to a restaurant and the chef is like super angry and they've just had an argument with their boss or something and they're angry cooking the food, believe it or not, that actually has a subtle impact on us too. It's really quite deep.
But at the very least, I just want to add one thing. If you can, avoid eating in restaurants that serve meat. Even though it's not there, but it's in the same vicinity, and it really affects you. So, you know, packing in a burger from McDonald's is not so much goodness, let's say. But the idea is that as much goodness as we can consume, that would be best. Okay. So that's food. What about music? What kind of music do you think is in the mode of goodness? Kirtan. What else? Classical music. Also music that you hear and you feel like, yeah, there was...
Bhashans or upanyasams,
Yeah, yeah.
the speeches by the monks and others.
Yeah. And just calm, soothing music, like you said, isn't it? Calm, soothing, peaceful music. You listen to it and you feel like, oh, that was nice. Okay? Mode of passion music. Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Love music.
Everything in Bollywood.
Dance.
Dance. Beatles. Heavy metal. Heavy metal. Death metal is like mode of ignorance kind of music and things like that. So you see, you can kind of classify. So what you hear is important, what you eat is important. Other thing that is also important is what you're looking at, because you're consuming not just through your mouth, but through your ears and through your eyes as well. What kind of things are you watching on TV? Too many horror movies? Not a good idea. It'll affect your consciousness. Too much passionate stuff. Okay? It's okay. But not too much. Okay,
And we're not saying like never listen to rap music if you like it, or we're not saying all or nothing at all. It's just about, okay, where can I choose more goodness in my life, and even small steps in choosing more mode of goodness, things like even being, if you can be vegetarian once a week, or cook food at home for yourself once a week instead of ordering out or something like that. So it's not an all or nothing thing either.
This is not us saying this is what you should do and you shouldn't do. This is us saying that these are the things will increase goodness, these are the things will increase passion, and these things will increase ignorance, and that will affect basically how your mind works. So you look at your sheet and you decide what you want to do.
And just maybe to conclude, ultimately, we all want to be happy. That's what we want, right? Ultimately, everyone wants to be happy. And the idea is that when we're more in the mode of goodness, the happier we become. And it's a different kind of happiness to a happiness that we get from passion. It's more of a contented happiness that can last a little bit longer and is more sustainable. And so being in the mode of goodness can help control the mind and help us be more happy too.
So any questions? Quick couple of questions, and then we can do some kirtan.
You mentioned sitting
Should we just pass the mic?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
How does that work?
You just speak.
Just hold it.
So you mentioned sitting with what bothers you with discomfort. What I felt personally is that if, for example, if I sit with anger, if someone's around me, I might still say something hurtful to them, or and it doesn't help. I might react. So what's a good way of sitting with it, but also not causing any problems?
If you can remove yourself from the situation, remove yourself from the room, or remove yourself from the situation, that is a practical thing. Another one is you don't necessarily just have to sit with it, you can also get it out. But how can you get anger out in a healthy way? So something I like to do is something like it's called a no-send letter or a no-send text. And I will write everything I'm feeling, all my frustrations. I'll be as rude as I want. I get it all out, I put it all in. But I don't send it, I don't say it. But there's something in the act of writing it all down, getting it all out, getting your anger out, sitting with it, and then you can choose how you want to react maybe sometime later. So I'll say removing yourself from the room or from the physical situation if possible. And then, yeah, it may even mean writing a no-send letter. It might even mean screaming into a pillow. It might even mean punching a pillow. It's not that anger is...
Sometimes I'm under the pillow.
It's not that anger is bad.
Yeah.
Anger is not necessarily a bad emotion.
Yeah.
It's about how we express it. And actually, interestingly, suppressed anger is often how depression comes. So
It's a beach ball. You're trying to suppress it. It's trying to press.
So it's important to allow your anger out, but just in a healthier way. So finding ways for you that work to get that frustration and anger out.
Yeah, thanks. But I think I find it difficult to remove myself from the environment, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of good tips there.
You can
Thank
squeeze something.
Yeah.
One last question. Last question. Whoever's taking it. Okay, wait. Oh, there. One last question.
Maybe there's two.
No, one.
One more. Okay. We can speak out.
I was just going to say, you know how you say about sitting with your feelings or whatever? Is that where it comes in as well? You know, when people talk it through, you said about writing the letter thing, but also talking it through, that helps, right? I'm guessing as well. That's what the, CBT is about, isn't it? When you talk through what you're feeling in that, is that one way of helping?
CBT is cognitive behavioural therapy, so it's slightly different. But absolutely, if you have someone, it doesn't even have to be a professional, if you have someone who can speak your feelings to, and here's the important bit, before you tell them how you feel, you say to them, I don't want you to fix this, I don't want you to give me advice, I want you to listen, to truly listen. And that is so powerful. If you're able to speak your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings in a non-judgmental space with someone who is really there to just listen and empathize and maybe reflect back what you said, that is so powerful in processing. So yeah, definitely, if we can find someone who we trust, who has the skills to listen without necessarily wanting to give advice or wanting to fix things, which can happen, but in a there's a time and place for that. So definitely talking about your emotions in a safe space is always, but with someone you trust.
Especially if you're doing it with a man, you need to tell them, don't give me advice. because it's kind of man's inbuilt thing to fix something. And usually when a wife or somebody tells them, they're like, okay, within men it's okay, we we know how it works. But with the women, men don't get it. So like Kishori always, when she tells me something, she'll just start off by saying, I don't need advice, don't say anything, you just listen. I'm like, okay. So then I know. Otherwise, I'll just start, okay, what do you do that for? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Why would you do that? And don't do that. Do this instead. But...
And one last thing is that on this thing, sometimes what I say to my friends, when they say, Kishori, I want to talk to you, and I say, okay, do you want me to listen or do you want me to give advice? And they'll say, I actually want advice. Or they'll say, I just want you to listen. So that's also a nice little thing that you can do. Yeah. Even as a man, you can ask, do you want me to listen or do you want advice? And then